Sorry for the little hiccup with the technology, but never mind. Still, first of all, I would like to welcome and thank Geshe Tashi Tsering this afternoon. Geshe-la has very kindly agreed us to give teaching on Four Noble Truths in detail. This kind of teaching on Four Noble Truths is very rare. Four Noble Truths as such can be taught in many ways. Say in 1 hour, say in 2 hours, say in one session, two sessions like that. But detailed teaching spanning up to 6 sessions is a very rare opportunity, and we are very fortunate in that way. His Holiness the Dalai Lama always says Four Noble Truths is the foundation of Buddha Dharma. And here we are all beginners. And in Tibetan we say Le Dambua. So it's a good opportunity for us to build a very good foundation with today's teaching starting today by Geshe-la. So we are very fortunate in that way. For this teaching on Four Noble Truths, we will have around 6 sessions on Sundays. Probably it may stretch up to February 2021 or so, because of many holidays in the month of December and January. But nothing to be worried, because we will let you know in advance. That is one. Then for the question answers, if you have any questions and answers, we will like you to send us through email. That our email is abc.nalanda.tradition@gmail.com in all in small letters. And we have a WhatsApp group also, where you can send the questions with your name and contact number, so that we can collect these questions and then request Geshe-la at the end of the teaching, maybe on the end of the during the 6th session, that we will request Geshe-la to kindly answer those questions. But like today and on the preceding sessions, we will not have question answer, because this may just disturb the flow of the teaching. So we don't want to disturb the flow of the teaching. Once the teaching is completed, then we will compile the question and request Geshe-la to give us the kindly request Geshe-la to answer the same questions. That is one. Then next is before any teaching, normally we set our motivations by saying some salutations, and at the end of the teaching we do some dedication prayers as well. So today we all, as an auspicious movement, will begin by saying few stanzas in Tibetan in the beginning and in the end as well. So I have circulated 2 handouts, one in English and one in Tibetan, for these preliminary prayers and dedication prayers. So I will start the preliminary prayers today by citing two, three salutations, and then we will do this thing, refuge, seeking refuge, which in Tibetan it is called Kyapto Semke. So first of all, then we will, with pure motivation, we will do the salutations in Tibetan. Gangi thukzi nyersu ne tawa thamje pangbe che.
Tawa thamje pangbe che, thambe che ne tenze me kodam de la sa sa lo.
Tunyi nyingji sungdu jukbe lam.
Nyingji sungdu jukbe lama che che sa se ganje tenze chana be mo tenze nyaso la so an de so shin de lundu sho.
These are the 2 salutations that we made to Buddha and to His Holiness the Dalai Lama. His Holiness the Dalai Lama today, he is like a sun benefiting millions of people all over the world. Even during this pandemic time, His Holiness has been giving teaching all throughout on the internet from Dharamsala, directly benefiting many millions and millions of people all over the world. So these are the 2 salutations that we made, and now we will do Kyapto Semke. Sanye Chodan Togi Chonam La Janjo Bardo Dane
Sanje Chonam La Janjo Bando Dane Gyoso Je Dagi Jinso Give Sunam Gi Chola Benje Sanje Chobarasho Chedan Zonje Chonam La Janjo Bando Dane Gyoso Je Dagi Jinso Give Sonam Gi Chola Benje Sanje Chobarasho Sanje Chedan Zonje Chonam La Janjo Bando Dane Gyoso 다예 제조제베 천남기 돌아 편제상제 조버쇼
With this now, without wasting much time, I will hand over the mic to Geshe-la for the teaching. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Toptenla, and all the participants. And it is great honor and a privilege to lead this gathering on a particular topic, that is the first Buddhist, the Buddhist teachings, that is the Four Noble Truths. And the style and the style of this gathering, as we started with making sure our motivation or intention to participate this gathering with the positive and constructive intention, such as the mind taking refuge in three jewels and generating or experiencing the altruistic awakened mind, bodhicitta. This is a very unique or very special, tradition that ancient Indian spiritual traditions have, not only in Buddhism, but also other ancient Indian spiritual traditions. When they start an event or start a project, always start with paying homage to the those great beings such as Buddha or other deities, and then making sure their intention, the motivation to participate, that particular event or the project is a positive motivation, positive intention, and that tradition is very, very important tradition. Important in the sense very useful and helpful for us to continue. Not only this kind of gathering, but also in our daily basis. In the morning when we woke up, spending just for a few minutes to make sure how to make sure how we are going to spend that day. Even though we may continue our routine activities during the day, but to make sure our intention, motivation is a positive, constructive motivation. And then if it is possible, according to one's own spiritual path, such as teachings of the Buddha. And that's what we have done, we did just now. And that is really something important. And also Todela mentioned at the end, we are going to say a few words as a dedication. So these two, the beginning, making sure have the right sets of mind, and at the end, to have another positive sets of mind. In Tibetan, it is called Tongtanila Chawani. And this comes from Nalanda Buddhist traditions. And overall, ancient Indian spiritual traditions. At the beginning, right motivation. At the end, right dedication. And what is important for us here is, make sure, this not to become like a ritual. When I say ritual, in the sense, just like a pattern. Okay, we're in a Buddhist gathering, so start with the salutation or paying homage, and end say some dedication, but not having any mental participation, simply just verbally saying it. And that will not benefit that much. Although it is great, just saying such as these nice lines, but saying the prayer or salutation or the refuge and bodhicitta lines alone will not get us the full benefits of this tradition. For us to get the full benefit of this tradition, we must, our mental state, our mind must participate. The lines, the words, the prayers what we are saying. So in order to participate fully and completely, then it needs understanding, the understanding of the meaning of the lines or the verses. So that is here, Nalanda tradition, once again, is part of this. As His Holiness Dalai Lama says very often, must learn, must study. And that is here, our these 6 classes on this, on this very important topic will be in that fashion, Not just me to read out the sutra and you just, listen. And then after the listening, when we finish the, hour and a half hour session, then nothing happened, then that will not work well. What is important here, as I may have mentioned our first gathering, a month ago, what is important here, as a Nalanda tradition, the first, of course, listening, reading, learning from those great teachers' teachings. But that alone will not take us that much far. It is simply like a what you call the borrowing the understanding of the subjects from the others. It is not our just simply through listening, and when we understand a little bit here and there, will not go depth into our heart, will not become part of our way of life. It may end up just in the intellectual understanding. Just intellectual understanding alone will not become Nalanda tradition's way of learning these things. Nalanda's traditions to learn these things is to make these teachings part of our daily lives, to really to experience them. And then what we experience them, then to take that into our daily lives. Whatever we do, doing routine things, whatever, but the teachings that we have received and the text that we have read must, go into next step. That is contemplation, reflection. Need to reflect that the verses, the lines, the points that you have heard, that we have read, must reflect again and again, using our own intelligence, and that will make those topics become our own knowledge, our own understanding. The Buddha taught, the great Indian masters have taught, and follower great master like His Holiness Dalai Lama have taught. These teachings, what they have taught, to become part of our own experience, our own knowledge, then we need to need to reflect on them again and again, contemplate on them again and again, use our own, the intelligence. And that is what quite often, in the Buddhist, terminology, the analytical meditation. Analytical meditation in the sense to analyze, to think, analyze. Analysis is done through our own intelligence, not other people have given some reasons. What other people have given reasons must, chew by ourselves, then to make our own knowledge. And that's really something important we should bear in mind. We should bear in mind, because the group that you put together, a very good heart and a good vision, and it is, Nalanda tradition. So to really to make Nalanda tradition, and we must apply the methodology, the techniques that Nalanda masters have taught. And that is, here, which I thought is important to say right at the beginning. So what I'm saying here is, that the topic is the Four Noble Truths, and I will follow the sutra itself. The sutra itself. I've sent this on to Thubden, and the sutra is very short. It's a very short, and it is very, very profound. And as His Holiness Dalai Lama says very often, the Four Noble Truths teaching that Buddha had given, after his enlightenment, that is the blueprint. That is the blueprint of the entire his more than 40-something years teachings. After his enlightenment, Buddha gave lots of teachings in many places, in many occasions, to many his followers. All those teachings that eventually, fall down to this Four Noble Truths. And therefore, it is really something, useful to learn, to study, to contemplate. And I will not go that much. I will not go the historical aspect of when Buddha gave his teachings, where it's given. This all are quite well known. And I myself is not good at giving, historical perspective or point of view. Not good at doing those, things. So what I'll do, in order to the time that we have, 6, Sundays that we are going to spend an hour and a half together, really mainly focus on the sutra itself, rather than, giving the historical, all those things. Now, the one thing what is important here in the sutra, after Buddha gave the background where the sutra is given, and the where the sutra is given, and to whom the sutra is given, taught, in the first paragraph. That is really the background. When all the sutras start with this line, "Thus have I heard." This is just saying because at the Buddha's time, when Buddha was giving this, the sutras were not written. The sutras were written down much later. In fact, some of the earliest sutras put down into written record much later, or they have this council gathering after Buddha passed away, who have heard directly from Buddha, and this is why most of the sutra start with this line saying, "Thus have I heard." So because his close followers were, out of their memory, from when they have Buddha, when they heard the teachings from the Buddha. That's why that they were talking. That line is put there at the beginning. Now, then the next paragraph is important one, and today we are going to spend a little bit of time on this. The next paragraph. The next paragraph is the paragraph which what Buddha taught to his 5 followers, and he taught in this next paragraph. I usually say this next paragraph is very much the historical Buddha is saying the teaching that he is going to give. In this case, the Four Noble Truths, and in certain extents, entire his teaching. The teaching that he is going to give will benefit to the people who have this kind of background, not in the what's called the culture background, social background, or the education background, or the racial background, not in that sense. The background in the sense psychological background. So what he's saying is to receive the full benefit, the teaching that he is going to give, psychologically, and in certain extent, practically, we should avoid 2 things. And this is what he called in the paragraph. You can see 2 extremes. We should avoid 2 extreme lifestyles. That is what he is saying, and this is really something useful in this, particularly in this 21st century. The century which everything's become very much what's called searching happiness from the external things. People are very much focused on how externally make things beautiful, make things plenty, make things nice, and lack of looking inward, internal, and that is what here. This is really something I feel very, very relevant for us too. So what are those 2 extremes that he said should avoid? The first extreme in here, what he's talking about, indulging sense pleasure. You can see people who have the sutra. It says, in case people who don't have the sutra, I will just read that paragraph and then we will discuss. So here he says this: bhikshus, as you know, bhikshus, those ordained, the monks, bhikshus, these 2 extremes ought not to be practiced by one who has gone forth from the household life. This is talking about household life in the sense his main focus, follower at that time is the ordained monks, and that's why he identified that. But in a certain extent, follower of his teachings, household life. So then there's a discussion. What are the 2? What are those 2, extreme ought not to be practiced, should not be practiced? What are the 2? There is devotion to the indulgence of sense pleasures, sense pleasures. And this is important. What he didn't say, not enjoy. He didn't say avoid enjoying, the sense pleasure. Quite often, people get mistakes in here, or people get, have a wrong sort of notion. As quite often people say, oh, you are Buddhist, and particularly you are Buddhist monk, you shouldn't enjoy this and that. That is not really what Buddha has taught to his followers. He used very, very specific words, indulgent, and that word is very important one. He says indulgence, and another word before that he said there is a devotion to the indulgence of sense pleasures. The word devotion and the indulgence, these two words are very important in these lines. When we say devotion, in the sense, you dedicate entire your life, entire your time, entire your energy, entire your resources, just to get, sensory pleasure. Sensory pleasure. Sensory pleasure, what does that mean? I'm sure all of you know. Sensory pleasure in the sense, to make please what we see, shapes and colors, what we hear, sounds, what we smell, what we taste, and what we touch. Those are the 5 sense, objects. Shapes and colors, smell and taste, sounds and tactile. Of course, we as a human beings, we are naturally equipped with these 5 sense consciousnesses, and our what you call our where we live, the universe or the planet where we live, where we're born and where we live, are the object of, full with the object of for the 5 sense consciousnesses. 5 sense consciousnesses. In the Buddhist teachings, that the realm or the environment where we live is called desire realm. In Tibetan, it's called Debakam, desire realm. What does that mean? That means the realm or the environment where we live, is full of shapes and colors, smell and taste, tactile, and so forth. And ourselves as a living beings equipped to interact with these 5 sense objects. So here what is saying, Buddha is saying, if we dedicate entire our lives, our energies, our resources, times, just to please these 5 sense consciousnesses, to make them, what you call the happy, if I use that word, to, just to fulfill the needs of the 5 sense consciousnesses, then, the teachings that he has given will not work. What does that mean, will not work? What does that mean? We won't have enough time. We won't have enough resources. We won't have enough times. On the one hand, dedicate entire our times to please our sense consciousnesses, and on the other hand, saying, I want to follow the teachings of the Buddha. Very, very difficult to, these two be compatible. I'm not saying these two are not, having enjoyment with the sense or sensory pleasure, that is fine, and also practice Buddha Dharma, that is compatible. what is not compatible is, indulging, completely indulging sensory pleasure, our life completely indulging sensory pleasure, but same time saying want to follow the teachings of the Buddha, that is not compatible. And that's what here it is really, really useful, helpful to remember that, to remember that. In Tibetan, there is a nice analogy. I will give you this. This analogy is quite, what you call the dramatic. And when I was young naughty boy in here at this monastery now where I am, and quite often one of my teachers used that analogies, and that was very dramatic, and it stick in my head. The analogy in this particular context, I will use that analogies. As you know, this samba is barley or wheat roasted, then make flour. Then that is you can eat without any cooking or anything like that directly. Pour some tea or whatever, then you can eat it. Or some the Tibetan tradition, you can just that flour, that samba, just without any liquid, you can just pull 1 spoon, you can just put in your mouth and chew it. Eventually it will go down, and quite sometimes if you don't know how to do that, it is not easy. But the people who have done that, it is quite sometimes it is quite good. You have time, very a spoonful of samba straight away put in your mouth, and for a few minutes chew it again and again and again, and eventually swallow it. But while samba is in your mouth, before it becomes like a dough in your mouth, you cannot play. Even if you want badly, you cannot play nice flute. The flute. You cannot play flute because your mouth is full of samba. So what it's saying here is, if you really want to eat samba, so leave it the playing flute for the time being. Or if you really want to play flute, then first leave it eating samba. Leave it that for the time being, play the flute. After you finish the playing flute, then eat the samba. These two cannot go together. So that is here what the Buddha is saying. It is very difficult. On the one hand, you want to devote yourself, indulging sense pleasure, and same time you say, I want to follow the teachings of the Buddha. And that is what here it is important. And this is what I just mentioned earlier. At this 21st century, sometimes people say the century of information. I teach some of my Westerner friends. I usually say century of sensationalized external objects. Everything is external things. Entire focus is very much external. Even as His Holiness Dalai Lama says very often, even entire education structure is very much how to make money, how to make external things, not very much how to make the internal things beautiful and rich and profound. And this is what here the Buddha is talking about. We should avoid devotion to the indulgence of sense pleasures. Once again, I want to repeat that. Buddha is not saying not enjoy sense pleasures. Buddha is not saying that. He's not saying not enjoy. Of course, enjoy sense pleasure, but not indulge. That is here important one. Then Buddha said this in the sense pleasure, which is if we devote our life, if we sort of dedicate entire our life, energy and resources just to get the sensory pleasure, then what Buddha says, that is, which is law, common, the way of ordinary people, unworthy and unprofitable. So these are the words which Buddha deliberately selected when he says law. Law in the sense, if we just simply spend our life, this human life, the human existence, this very, very sophisticated and rich brain or emotions and thoughts and intelligence, simply to spend, on to get sensory pleasure, then, it is law in the sense, you are not wise. You are not wise. Like, for example, a person who has a very fast car, like a Ferrari or something like that, those very fast car. Then he or she drives that car in a very small countryside, narrow streets. Streets have lots of holes, and there's no good road. Like that. Car itself has a power to run 200 miles an hour, but the person is driving that car in the countryside road, which has a very narrow, like that. Law in that sense. Law in that sense. So that is really something important to remember that. Also, he says common. Common in the sense, this is what normally people do. People who seriously, genuinely and seriously want to seek liberation, from this kind of unenlightened existence, then our lifestyle and how we spend our life, energy and resources have slightly different from the people, commonly they do. And that's what here it says common. The way of ordinary people. Yeah, way of ordinary people. Ordinary in the sense people who haven't thought about the importance of seeking freedom, seeking liberation, moksha, nirvana. Ordinary, in Tibetan, chiba, quite often is called chiba. Chiba sosokyu in Tibetan, quite often use that term. And the next one, it says unworthy and unprofitable. Unworthy and unprofitable. Unworthy in the sense, if we spend entire our lives and the energies and resources to have things just to make our five sense consciousnesses happy or pleasurable, these things don't have that much value. From our own experiences, we can tell. For example, when I was in London, they go to those big stores, and when that, and then you look in those windows, shopping, doing things, then you see something very attractive, very useful, then you buy it. When you buy it, first day or 2 days or a week or month, you feel very satisfied. this is something which I really need, which I really like, which is very useful. After a few days, after a few weeks, or a few months, that satisfaction is gone. We are once again looking another one. The satisfaction that we gain from that previous, that what we have bought is already gone. No more there. We are looking for another one. The value, the thing that we have got from the shop, from the store a few weeks ago, is already, we don't see any value. And this is not only our own fault, it is the nature of the things and events that those sense objects, shapes, colors, smell, taste, tactile, more we sort of go with them, more we try to please, them, the sense consciousnesses, they demand more and more and more. More we feed, more they demand. And that is here, again, unworthy. Unworthy in the sense, not that much meaning. And the next one is unprofitable. Unprofitable in the sense, these sense objects, 5 sense objects that we collected, all those things. I mean, myself as a monk, I moved many places, from one place to another place. And, every time when I move and pack, for example, in 2018, when I was appointed here as an abbot, and, place where I was living in London, South London. And, I always tried to pay attention, not to collect too much, because I had experienced this before when I moved from another place to, so I always have pay attention not to collect too much. But still, when I was packing and coming to the monastery, and I felt very disappointed, disgust to myself. So many collections, so many robes. I have only one body, but I have so many robes. And because in the UK, they have this summer quite hot, winter quite cold. So many hats and so many gloves, and so that is how we do. And they don't have any, these are not profitable. Not profitable to oneself, and also nowadays, if you look at from the environmental point of view, the world's economical point of view, indirectly these collections damages, the environment, because these are made with the environment cost. So that those things, which is really, really something, these teachings Buddha had given more than 2,500 years ago, still extremely relevant in this 21st century. Because these are really, teachings are very much given to understanding the human mind, human, consciousness, and human sort of behavior. And although at the Buddha's time, they don't have computer, they don't have iPad, and they don't have iPhone. Externally, from the material point of view, yes, difference. What Buddha's time they have and what we have. But internal, our thoughts, our emotions, our desire, our attachment, our, the anger, haven't changed that much. Haven't changed. So this is something which is very, so out of the two extremes, Buddha, talk about this first extreme, the extreme, there is a devotion to the indulgence of sense pleasure. So really pay attention. Of course, we need, what you call for our survival, our basic necessities, food, shelter, medicine, friendship, and all those we need. But the necessity and then exaggeration, extravagant, we need to make it clear, what you call the demarcation. Pay attention, and this is what one of the tools that Buddha had mentioned very often, mindfulness. Be mindful what we are buying, what we are collecting, what we are, these are here very important tools. And this is the first, Buddha said we should avoid. And the second out of two, then Buddha says, and there is a devotion to self-mortification. This at this stage we don't have that much. Many of us, majority, we don't have difficulty with this second extreme. Here it says, the self-mortification. Self-mortification, literally, it means simply saying, in order to free from suffering and the causes of suffering, torturing one's own body, torturing one's own, there are these kind of sacrificial, in ancient Indian time, ancient India, there are these kind of religious traditions, and even these days there are some traditions still there. Simply ignoring even the basic needs, food, shelter, medicine, friendships, saying, ignoring and just, avoiding, abandoning basic necessity, eventually, to gain what you call the liberation. And that is another extreme. We don't have that difficulty, the second extreme, only there's this modern, they recognize what you call that, as psychological illness. People, particularly young, these days, even boys, mainly young girls, not to eat food because due to worry about putting weight. My words not coming anyway. But what Buddha was talking about at the Buddha's time in India, there were these traditions, spiritual traditions, simply tortured, ignore basic necessities for the survival, out of the particular religious view. And Buddha saying that kind of lifestyle should be avoided. And that's what Buddha said here, which is painful, unworthy, and unprofitable. So this paragraph, second paragraph, after the first paragraph where Buddha, explained what you call the background, or his follower explained the background of the sutra, and the main sutra, when the sutra started from the second paragraph, this is I found very, very useful, important, what you call the teaching, important teaching. So why I'm saying that, because it goes to straight to like a mirror. It becomes like a mirror we can look in into the mirror. How we, you know, what is our lifestyle? What is our lifestyle? You know, and particularly, even if we don't have what you call the physically, even if we don't have too many, you know, things, but mentally, constantly, mentally sort of, you know, searching for more, you know, even, you know, the living in a very remote place, in a, you know, but if we mentally, what you call the, you know, the yearn to have more and more, and that is same. Even physically, even if we don't have, but if we mentally, you know, yearn, have that kind of yearning, that kind of desire, you know, not have that contentment, to content what you have. And, you know, in Tibet, in the one of the important mental qualities that Buddha had identified in another sutra, another very nice short sutra, you know, contentment is very, very important mental qualities to cultivate. In Tibetan, you know, chok sheba, you know, that means you are happy with the things what you have got. You know, that really is something important mental qualities to be cultivated. So that is really, you know, the, which is important. And the next paragraph, the third paragraph, which sutra says this: avoiding both these extremes, so, you know, avoiding and not having, and, you know, the lifestyle of these two extremes, you know, avoiding both these extremes, the Tathagata has realized the middle path. So that is what, you know, how to avoid, how to really gradually train ourselves bit by bit to really not have that kind of lifestyle, indulging sense pleasures, and, you know, the what you call the self-mortification. And then here, then the means and methods or the solutions here, and they're saying that Buddha realized the middle path. So middle path in the sense, you know, the teachings, the solutions that Buddha had given, all his, you know, his what's called the duration of his teachings, he has given the middle path. Middle path in the sense, not the other extreme, sense indulgent, or the neither the other extreme, which is self-mortification. The spiritual path that Buddha had given to his follower is called middle path. So this middle path should not be misunderstood. Some, you know, in the philosophical term, the middle, what you call the middle way school. There are these things, Madhyamika school, Uma Belu. But this is simply middle path in the sense, not in the two extremes, but in the middle. Then Buddha gave his teachings to his followers. And this is what here it says, this middle path. It gives a vision. So the means and methods that Buddha had taught to his followers is called middle path. And that middle path, it gives vision, it gives knowledge, and it leads to calm, to insight, to enlightenment, to nibbana. So that is really very, very, you know, nice to read. It gives a vision. It gives a vision in the sense, while we are in this unenlightened state, while we are in this, unenlightened life, to a certain extent, we don't see the things as they are. Our mental states are distorted by attachment, aversion, and ignorance. Our mental states are distorted by these afflictions, so therefore we don't see. When I say see, I'm not talking about literally by our eyes. So mentally, we don't see things and events as they are. We always see the things and events in a distorted manner, because our mental states are polluted, mental states are distorted by attachment, aversion, and ignorance, particularly ignorance in the fundamental level. So the middle part that Buddha realized, that Buddha had found, really give us a vision to see the things, as they are. And it says it gives vision. It gives knowledge. It gives knowledge in the sense, it gives the deep understanding as they are, things and events as they are. This will come later when we look at the Four Noble Truths, one by one. For example, when we are going to look at the First Noble Truth, many of us don't see, don't understand certain levels of dukkha, suffering as a dukkha. But the middle part that Buddha had found and Buddha taught his followers give us to see all the sufferings are as a suffering, not in a different manner. And that's what here is talking about, it gives knowledge. And then says, and it leads to calm. And a very, very nice word, calm, peace. These are the similar, the meaning, calm, peace, the moksha. These are very similar. They all carry the connotation of, calm in the sense, when the confusion, when the distorted mental states are, gradually dispersed, gradually eliminated, what we'll have within ourselves have a tremendous sense of peace, tremendous sense of relaxation, and tremendous sense of calmness. And that's what saying calm. Calm can be looked at in many different levels. Here, calm in the sense, all the confusions, many of us, for example, these days when we talk about teenagers, many teenagers, like in Korea, South Korea, and in Japan, and also in many developed countries in the West, many teenagers, they suicide. Simply because on the social media they were bullied, or their names were said something that how they look is something not good, blah blah blah, and then that is due to confusion, due to what you call the attachment, anger. So therefore there's no calmness, isn't it, in a simple form. So here it says calm, that it leads to calm, to insight in the sense, for example, these days when these are very powerful, what you call the telescopes or powerful microscopes, when they are focused, able to see the, what you call the building blocks of the atoms, some of the fundamental building blocks of the matters, when they put into these powerful microscopes, or when they use these powerful telescopes, they are able to see thousands of miles away in the universe, these amazing stars and planets they are able to see. So insight, in the sense here, within us, at this stage, we don't understand all the details, how the sufferings are causes. What are the really causes of these mental anguish, hatred, anger? What are the causes? The fear, concern. We don't see that detail. But the teaching that Buddha had given, the middle path that Buddha had realized, give us the insight to see the detail, the causal structure of the suffering that we don't like, or give us the detail, the structure to give us happiness and joys. And that's what here to talk about, insight, to enlightenment, to nibbana. So that is what here, it is very nice, enlightenment, nibbana. Nibbana or nirvana, there's only different, one is Pali. This text that I'm reading is background Pali master, so I put it Pali word, nibbana. In Sanskrit, nirvana, otherwise it's same. So that is here, then we will leave it here today. We leave it now approaching to 5 o'clock, and we will have the dedication prayer and so forth. And then our next meeting, I will start from this, then going through the, what that middle path is, And, so far what we have seen today, give us a summary. What we have discussed, what we have read today, we have read mainly the second paragraph, which really Buddha gives, saying people, his teaching will benefit to people who have this particular lifestyle, that the lifestyle not indulging sense pleasure, also not avoiding the basic necessities, but having a middle way lifestyle. And that is the summary of the second paragraph. And we start the third paragraph, and there, what is that Buddha found, which is called middle path? What that will do? What are the result of following that middle path? And those list the vision, knowledge, calm, insight, enlightenment, and nibbana. These are the results that we will experience when we follow the middle path that Buddha had realized, and that's what he is going to teach us. So that is the summary of today's reading. Okay, and as I mentioned earlier, really, until next Sunday. Next Sunday will be our second Sunday reading this text. So, try to contemplate a little bit on these, the paragraph that so far we have read, and I've shared my understanding, and then you can contemplate. You can contemplate how this, the lifestyle, indulging sense pleasure, will not helpful to follow the teachings of the Buddha. Why? What are the obstacles? And so forth. And that is how gradually, to become more, deeper understanding, and that will benefit to become teaching, become part of our daily lives. And that is important. Okay. So now, shall we say the dedication?
Yes, Geshe-la, thank you so much for wonderful teaching. Now
Thank you.
today we'll do the end dedication also in Tibetan.
Yeah.
So we will do the Ngo Manlam.
Yeah.
So we'll read out slowly. Gangri Rave Korve Shingam Der Pendan Dewa Mali Juwe Ne Chere Siwa Tende Gyabzo Yi Shabite
Tenga zoye shabe sidi bado tengyo renji.
Jambel Pawo Jidar Kemba Dan Kundu Sampo
Titara kemba dan kundo sambo deyan deshine. Teta
Dewa
kunyi
Tisa
jeso
Tamje
tambo cheki.
Rabu Mo
Tamje rapto.
Jekbe Gyawa Tamje Gi Ngowa Gala
Tamje le ngo gala chodo nga pade. Tangi kiwe sawa deke kya sambo cheche rapto.
Malam Lokbe Gyawa Tembala Kue
Kewe temba la kuwe nangyo sujen sume de samjo rinbe chukwa malu wa choson dembe ze
Wo Tujiche Gishila.
Oh, yeah.
We'll see you next Sunday, Gishla.
That's right. That's
Thank
right.
you. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gishla.